Today's lesson is on percent of increase and decrease. A percent of increase or decrease represents a change from an original amount. Sometimes we're given the percent of change and asked to find the original amount, the amount of change, or the current amount. We can use two methods, an equation or a proportion. However, with both methods, an additional step is required. So let's look at our first situation. Last fall, 20 students enrolled in a creative poetry class at JCC. This fall, the enrollment increased by 150%. How many students are enrolled in this class this fall? So let's start by highlighting important information. So last fall, 20 students were enrolled. Then this fall, enrollment increased 150%. And they want to know how many students are enrolled in class this fall. Okay, and we want to also key off this word increase. That will become important later on. So we're going to start with proportion method. They've given us a percent right away, so we're going to write that as 150 over 100. That's what percent means, a number over 100. And then I need to know the change, which we don't know. That's what we're trying to figure out of the original, and the original amount last fall was 20 students. So we're going to now cross multiply. 100 times x is 100x, and 150 times 20 is 3,000. So now that we have our cross products, we're going to divide by 100 on both sides. And that leaves us with x equals 30. Now normally we'd be done and we'd have our answer, but this is where the second step comes in. We notice this word increase. So we're going to write the amount of students that were enrolled last fall. And now there's been an increase of 150%, which means there's been an increase of 30 students. So we're going to add 30 more students. And so our total is 50. So that means there are 50 students enrolled this fall. So that can be tricky because we're used to cross multiplying or using an equation and having the answer, but this is going to involve a second step. So let's see what it would look like if we used an equation. So if we use the equation, we're going to have to write that the part is not really part, it's actually the change that we're looking at. And the R is a percent as usual. And the total this time we're going to refer to as the original amount that they give us. So in this case, the part that we're looking for is the change from this year to last year. The percent is 150%, and I'm multiplying it times the original amount, which was 20 students last fall. So like we usually do, we're going to get rid of the percent, divide by 100, or scoop the decimal twice to make this into a decimal number instead of percent, times 20. And when we multiply 1 and 5/10 times 20, we're going to get 30, which is what we had last time. But we still have that additional step. Again, last fall, there were 20 students. There's been an increase of 30 students, and now there are 50 students total enrolled this fall. So let's look at this situation, another situation like this again. Our next situation says last year Stockwell Farms employed 40 people. This year the workforce was decreased by 75%. How many people, and it should say are, currently employed at Stockwell Farms? So we have the proportion method and the equation method. So let's first highlight important information. Last year Stockwell Farms employed 40 people. This year, there was a decrease of 75%. And the question we're being asked is how many people are currently employed. And we also want to notice this word decrease is important. So the percent that they give us is 75, and percent means out of 100. We don't know the change. That's what we need to find out so we can use it. But we do know the original amount last fall of employees was 40. So now we're going to cross multiply. 100x equals 75 times 40. And ironically, that's 3,000 again. We're going to divide by 100 on both sides, and that's going to leave us with x equals 30. Now this time we happen to have the same answer, but we have a decrease, and we started out with a different amount of employees as we did in the problem before. So last fall there were 40 employees. There's been a decrease, so we're going to subtract, of 30 employees, and that means currently there are 10 employees. So currently there are 10 employees. So it's called increase or decrease because we have a second step once we find the amount. Now, what we're going to talk about tomorrow, our next lesson, is if they don't give you the percent, sometimes we're asked to find the percent. But before we do that, let's go ahead and look at, in case you prefer to use this method, again, the equation. If we prefer to use this method, this is the change times the percent, and this is the original. So we don't know the change. The percent that they gave us in this particular problem is 75, and the original amount of employees last fall was 40%. Again, we would move the decimal twice or divide by 100. And if you take 75% or 0 and 75 hundredths times 40, you're going to get 30. So we would end up with exactly the same, but we have to subtract because it said a decrease. And so this is just a different way to do the same problem. You're going to decide which one you prefer. Now, in this lesson, I did not think ahead to provide you with a situation where you're given the change, but you don't know the original. So if you'd please watch the second video, we're going to go over that, and that's also on your homework sheet. So we'll practice a situation where you're given the change and we don't know the original. Thanks for listening, and please watch the next video.